One of the things we have to watch out for when it comes to food contamination, one of the microbes, I should say, is salmonella. You've heard salmonella chickens, well, you're told to always wash your hands after handling chicken, have, the chicken only, the poultry only cutting board, keep everything separate so you don't contaminate, cross contaminate, or you're going to get sick. Well, they're right. Okay, salmonella is everywhere. It hits a large portion of our poultry that we have available for us here in the U.S. Because of the nature of salmonella and how it is growing as part of the microflora of chickens up in their cloaca and everything, it becomes part of the egg. It'll actually be inside the egg as the eggshell is being laid down inside the chicken. So when you get the eggs, it's not only the outside of the egg that could be contaminated, but it's the internal contents also, which is why they say don't eat raw eggs. There are a lot of species in the genus Salmonella. One of them that we focus mostly on is the genus species Salmonella enterica, subspecies enterica. Salmonella enterica, or Salmonella enterica typhi. Salmonella, they used to just refer to it as Salmonella typhi. You'll see that in some of the older microbiology textbooks. For the genus Salmonella, specifically the species enterica and the subspecies typhi, we find that they are motile. It means they are flagellated. They can swim around. They can swim across the thin, moist film that's going to be on the surface of chickens. And that thin film transferred via the cutting board to your vegetables. They're easily identified in a lab based on a few biochemical tests that we've discussed in previous chapters. They ferment glucose with acid. They produce hydrogen sulfide, but they're urease negative. They're easy to grow in the lab. They survive outside the host. Okay, so that's one of the things we're going to find with some enterics. Remember, enterics are going to be microbes that grow within the GI tract. They are very hard. They're very fastidious and thus hard to grow in the lab in or on artificial media. Salmonella is out there, okay? It's not always a pathogen. It's part of the normal intestinal biota of cattle, poultry, rodents, reptiles, just not us humans. Somebody ingest salmonella. Some of the symptoms and signs that you're going to see: elevated body temperature, septicemia. Turns out that salmonella has, virulence factors that may allow it to penetrate the epithelial wall lining of our small and large intestine, get into the underlying mucosa and the capillary beds. Milder forms are going to start with vomiting and diarrhea. Okay, you've got so much diarrhea pumping out um, that you can actually burst some of the capillaries and the capillary beds that are lining the large intestine. You can burst some of the capillary beds lining the rectum so that you'll get some blood in the stool. Side note, little something that was taught by a clinician many, many years ago. When a patient's presenting with blood in their stool, ask what color it is. If it's red, if they tell you they know they're bleeding and because it's red, that means the source of the blood is either rectum or sigmoid colon. Okay, it hasn't been in there long enough to start clotting or to have the bacteria breaking it down. If they say, there's, it's some slightly tinted red, but it's coming out tarry, like they're passing a reddish black tar, that means it's up in the ascending transverse or even further back or further towards the beginning of the large intestine, and the blood has spent so much time in the large intestine that it's starting to clot. The bacteria are breaking it down and things like that. Now, when it's a mild form of salmonellosis, okay, like I said, they may have some blood appear in the stool where the capillary beds are being, bursting, and, some blood seeping in will be determined by color of the blood that's in the stool. For most healthy adults, they're going, 2 to 5 days. Is how long it's going to last, and then it's going to take a few days after that for them to recover. Only time it's really going to be a mortal infection, an issue with mortality, is if there's already some underlying health issue for that patient. Salmonella has to be able to stick around in the large intestine. Okay, its mere presence alone, passing through your large intestine, is not going to cause the diarrhea, is not going to cause the distress. It has to adhere and maintain its place, its position within the large intestine. It starts to colonize. Turns out Salmonella, some of the species, Enterica, the subspecies Typhi, also have endotoxins. Now, it's interesting, even though the number of people who get salmonellosis every year, turns out it's actually hard to get. The ID50, remember the ID50 is how many microbial cells you have to ingest at once to get sick. Turns out that number for salmonella is actually quite high. Thousands, millions high, okay? So it is actually very hard to get it, which means somebody at some point in time was not paying attention to their hygiene in a kitchen. Cutting up the chicken and then using the same board to cut up fruits and vegetables, some of which will be eaten raw. There you go, source of contamination. There was cases a few years ago, salmonellosis, for imported strawberries, I believe it was. People were just eating them straight out of the container from the supermarket. Turns out that these were imported from a country, I'm not going to say which country, that even though they claimed they were monitoring it, the farms were using local streams to irrigate their fields. Well, it turns out the local streams were also, how they got rid of wastewater, how they got rid of sewage. So they were irrigating their strawberry fields with human fecally contaminated water. Strawberries got imported into the US. People ate them without cleaning them. Next thing you know, they have salmonella. Best way not to get sick, don't come into contact. If you're handling food, keep separate cutting boards. Wash your hands a lot. Don't even trust prepackaged fruits and vegetables. If you're somebody who's immunocompromised or your patient's immunocompromised, stress to them to really make sure they follow proper kitchen hygiene. They go to only reputable restaurants, no food trucks, no little mom and pop diners. Well, it's not guaranteed the food trucks or the little mom and pop diner is going to always be the source of an outbreak. Well, why take the chance?